Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Ratan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. Upon request, I am going to review Mark Ryan wines. A couple of my viewers said, can you please, since you're on this kind of Washington thing, could you review Washington wines? I really like Mark McNeely. He's a super nice guy. And I'll tell you something about Mark McNeely, who is the original winemaker for Mark Ryan Wine. He still is deeply involved in the winemaking. He has an assistant winemaker or a head winemaker now, but he still gets involved in the blending and all of that. So he has a hands-on with the winery. But I met Mark when he first got started. His winery started in 1999. I met him here in Friday Harbor. He came with Ted Seifert, a good friend of mine, who owns a wine shop in Bellingham called Seifert and Jones. But at the time, Ted worked for Unique Wines, a distributor. Ted and I became close friends as he called on me over 20 years. He was up with Mark Ryan. We went out to dinner, talked quite a bit, and I was impressed, super impressed with Mark's hard work to get his winery going. He started in the trenches working for, I believe it was Matthew Sellers, I believe. And he worked hard with them, learned the winemaking job, learned how to do all the things you need to do, and then he got out on the streets and he schlepped his wine. I mean, he took hand trucks up and down Seattle, he delivered his own wine, and that's how he got started. Very hard worker. So talking about blue collar guy, and Mark McNeely is a blue collar guy. And he became very successful with his winery. So we're going to review 4 of his wines. Now, Mark Ryan Winery has several labels underneath that umbrella of Mark Ryan Wine. They have the Lou and Ollie, named after his daughters Lucia and Olivia. He has the Vincent lineup, or the Board Track Racer lineup. And then he has what he came out with, the 216 Miles to Go, and of course his Mark Ryan wine. So we're going to review one of each and see how they are. So let's get started right away with the Lou and Ollie. This is the Flowerhead Wine Company Pinot Gris, Lou and Ollie Pinot Gris. This is 2024, rolls at $20. Now the cool thing about second labels, and we'll just call these second labels, his name is on there. This is the only one where his name, it says cellared and bottled by Lou and Ollie. Cellared means they don't make it. Produced means they do. So this is produced by Mark Ryan Winery. Cool thing about second labels is wineries are very smart to do them. One way is they can get rid of some of the juice they don't use in their, I don't mean get rid of, they can use some of the juice they don't use in their top wines. And then they can introduce their wines to the consumer at a lower price point so people can get an idea of what they are about. Say that on the back. There you go. But Lou and Ollie, part of Mark Ryan Winery, named after his daughters, Lucia and Olivia. Got a little thunder going on out there, so there is lightning. Let's give it a little rinse. Been interesting weather. We had a super hot day yesterday. All the windows were open in the house. We had the fans going, and now it's kind of cooler, and there's some moisture coming in, so thus you get the thunder and lightning. So, Lou and Ollie Pinot Gris. Showed the label, I hope. Sometimes I get excited and don't do that. Cool label, nice. He talked about the artist and what they do. It's pretty interesting. Nice label. I think it was a tattoo guy that made this. Anyway, let's see what we get on those. Lighter in color. Pinot Gris from, let's see, did I say where it is? Columbia Valley. Yes, Columbia Valley, Washington. So a lot of pear. Get a lot of pear on the nose. Lots of pear. A little bit of honeysuckle. And just a hint of ripe green apple. Or, well, I wouldn't even see green apple. Let's backtrack a little bit. Ripe apple. Red delicious, perhaps. Let's see what we get on the palate. Pinot Gris is a huge market. During the summertime, right now, I sell a lot of Pinot Gris. Tons of it. Pinot Grigio from Italy, Pinot Gris from Washington, Pinot Gris from Oregon, Pinot Gris from France. Very fresh, nicely balanced. I like this wine. Good acidity, fresh. Those pear notes come through with a little bit of that apple, and on the palate, the green apple notes come through. Now that's, when I was smelling it, I thought, is this green apple or red apple? Because of the honeysuckle notes, it might hedge towards red apple on the nose, but on the palate, obviously green apple from the acidity. Like I said, very balanced. It has a little bit of a minerality note coming through on the backside, which is really cool. $20 a fair price for this wine. I've noticed a lot of the Oregon Pinot Gris are getting up in the 20 plus range. So this is a nice price point to try a Mark Ryan wine. Lou and Ollie, remember that. That is a Mark Ryan wine. I'm going to go B plus on that. I think it's a very good Pinot Gris. Solid. Now we're going to go to the Vincent Board Track Racer. This is his red wine, Columbia Valley, and he doesn't put the components on this, but you know, it's pretty obvious he's probably a Bordeaux style blend. Cab, Merlot, maybe a little bit of Cab Franc, maybe a little bit of Syrah. So Board Track Racer is $20. The Vincent Red. There's a couple of Board Track Racer wines. He has a Chardonnay, a couple other things. Very dark, almost a purple black on this one. Let's see what we get on the nose. The Vincent. So you get this nice bacon fat notes. They're really, really plush kind of boysenberry bacon fat plum notes. Definitely some currants coming through on this. Really, really kind of nicely aromatic. If you smell this, you go, wow, this is going to be a great wine. You know, aromatics are huge. And I would encourage any of you that are, especially if you're starting to get into wine, just take a minute and smell it. I've said this before, but if you put a clothespin on your nose and eat food, you don't get anything out of the food. And so take time to smell your wine. It really makes a difference. I'm just going to stick my neck out and say there is some Syrah in this, Cab, probably Merlot. But I like the boysenberry plum and just a hint of bacon fat on this. See what we get on the palate. Now what I like about the direction that I see Mark Ryan going with his wines, and this is something I've noticed over the last few years, is they used to be a lot bigger, bolder. Now he's allowed a little bit of acidity to take into place, so they become more balanced wines. I'm not saying they weren't balanced before. Obviously, when he was doing them before, people loved those wines. That's how he got his reputation. But now he's kind of toning back, adding a little more, allowing some of that acidity to come through. This is a very balanced wine. This is a good food wine. I wouldn't call this a cocktail wine necessarily. I know that when I go to a restaurant, if they pour this by the glass, oftentimes this is the wine I will go to because I really enjoy it. So those bacon fat notes come through big time on the palate. Get a little bit of a char element on the backside of this, with those plum and boysenberry notes coming through on this, with the currant notes as well. So you get this nice kind of fruit-driven wine with the balance of the acidity, good structure. I like this wine a lot. I think it's just a really good play for $20. So I'm going to go B plus A minus on that. I think it's a nice red blend, very well balanced, delicious wine for $20. Good job, Mark Ryan Winery. Now, this is a fairly recent introduction to his lineup. This is this is 22. Like I said, sometimes I get excited and forget to say the vintage. I believe I said on this one 24. The Vincent is a 23, 2023, so a Michael Jordan. And the 2016 miles to go, Cabernet Sauvignon, and this is a, I do not see the, oh, come on, 2023, there it is in small print underneath. And the reason he calls it 216 miles to go by Mark Ryan is that's how many miles it is from Woodinville to Columbia Valley, where he sources the fruit for this wine. So he just, this is an ode to his travels and hard work going over and getting fruit, picking fruit, and making his wines in Woodinville. It's Columbia Valley appellation, and I believe he puts the composition on this. It is 77% Cab, 14% Merlot, 5% Malbec, and 2% Petit Verdot. So it has a lot of those Bordeaux style blends, but because it is 77% Cab, you can call it Cabernet Sauvignon. But I like the fact that Mark puts this on there. And I used to complain a lot about people not putting the composition or what's in the wine. He doesn't do it on the Vincent. But then somebody said, well, you know, it costs a lot of money, and not, they weren't addressing this issue, but they said how much money it costs to change labels year by year. And I can imagine it does cost a lot of money to put those percentages on each label as each vintage comes out. Let's give this a little rinse. 216 miles to go. Cabernet Sauvignon by Mark Ryan Winery. A little rinse here. See, we get. Let's look at the color on this. Bob and Kathy, I'll break out your board again. I've just been kind of busy. I am going to break out the board in a minute, and I want you guys to tell me, can you see behind this? Anyway, the color is very good. It'd be nice if I get a camera above, but color is, for me, this helps. It's a really kind of a reddish, dark color, really dark red. What I'd say on it. You can see through the rim a little bit. So it's a fresh wine. There we go. So this is totally currant driven on the nose, big time. Dark cherries, currants. Very intense aromatics on this one. And did I say $38? So I believe the point of this is that Mark wanted some people to try his wines with his name on it, and he came in at a really solid price point for a Cabernet from Washington at a premium level. Yeah, very intense on the nose. I'm not going to look at the alcohol content, but it doesn't, I'm sure it's probably around 14.5. Yeah, dark cherry, dark currant. There's a teeny bit of spices coming through, and I think he says on this it's part new French oak and part 1 year used French oak. I believe that's how he put it. He puts quite a bit of detail on the label, yes. Yeah, 28% new French oak, 72% once filled French oak. So that's pretty good oak treatment. French oak, a lot of wineries like to use it. It adds a lot of spice to the wine, baking spices. Let's see what we get on the palate. Oh, very solid Cabernet Sauvignon. Good structure. A nice balance between acid, fruit, tannins. The tannins are smooth, but they have a little bit of that chalkiness to them. And it lingers for quite some time. The currant notes linger for quite a while. There's a little sweetness to the tannins. It's hardly a fruit-forward wine because of the structure. It keeps it balanced, so it's not a big, goopy Cabernet Sauvignon. But I like those sweet tannins. A lot of people are going to like that. I think this one will age quite a bit. I think this easily 10 years with the fruit and the tannins and the acidity. All those things count towards aging. And now you got me curious. I'm not wearing my reading glasses, but I am going to guess. Yeah, 14.5 alcohol. Exactly what I thought. So this is like one of those wines where $38 isn't a huge price point. I mean, we can get up into the 50 plus range, which we're going to do with the next wine. But for $38, I really appreciate the fact that Mark is putting a wine out there that people can approach and try and say, wow, this is really good. And maybe at some point they say, well, I have a little extra money, I'm going to buy one of his higher end wines. I don't think, he just wants people to enjoy his wines. And that's what I like about Mark. He really does want people to enjoy his wines. And that allows people to do that. Like I said, very, very delicious, but very balanced. And I like the acidity. This would be great with a big steak or a stew or anything like that. This wine would match up perfectly. I love it. I'm going to go straight up A on that one. Very good one. Now, this is one of his big boys. This is the Mark Ryan Winery Long Haul Red Wine, Washington State, Columbia Valley Appellation, 2023. This is 25th edition. That's pretty cool. He even numbers the bottles. This is 63% Merlot, 20% Cabernet Sauvignon, 10% Cab Franc, 4% Malbec, and 3% Petit Verdot. Love it. He puts a lot of detail on the bottle. That's really cool. This is $65. So now we're getting up there. This is not chump change, but like I've said over and over again, I call this a blue collar wine guy, but the blue collar wine show. I am the blue collar wine guy, but that does not mean a blue collar person does not spend money on wine if it's a good wine. The point of this program is I want to help you spend your wine dollars wisely. So I don't want you blowing $65 on a wine if it doesn't deliver. See, we all understand that, right? All right, color on this. Break up the board again. So this is dark. Now it's darker than the 260 miles to go, but this has some really nice color to it. Really dark red hedging towards black in the center. And the cool thing, this is something about Washington State Merlot. And I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Merlot in Washington State, in California they use Merlot to soften the cab. And it's been said that in Washington State they use Cab to soften the Merlot. Because Merlot is so big in Washington State. It's really cool. Probably one of the premium places to get Merlot is Washington State. Let's see what we get on those. Believe it or not the most aromatic of the bunch. But I am getting black plum and currant notes on the nose. And I'm going to stop there. I mean, maybe a little bit of I'm getting a little bit of a natural black licorice as well. With the black plum and currant, and maybe a little bit of dark cherry. Let's see what we get on the palate. As soon as that hit my palate, it's like, wow. Very silky up front, very silky. And then the fruit comes in, the fruit comes in, and you get that nice dark cherry, currant, black plum notes just carry through all the wine into the finish, where you get a lot of baking spices. It's really spicy on the back end. Good structure, good integration. This is well-made wine. I think if you bought this, or you'd say, wow, this is a really great wine. And it would take you a couple of days to drink it because you just cherish every gulp. And I know you're going, are you being silly, Stan? A couple of days. And, you know, this is something that I've done over my career, and that is I've tried some wine, put the cork back in, and see how it is the next day. And that is only for my edification in education situation and selling the wines, because if that wine can hold up over a day or 2 days, it just shows how serious that wine is. Listen to that thunder. So it really is true, and I really get excited when I find a wine that is inexpensive that does that. But this is a beauty. I mean, this is just nicely integrated. Nice high tones mixed with the deeper fruit. I get a little in the background, I get a little bit of that kind of bittersweet chocolate, maybe a little bit of licorice as well, but not huge on the licorice side, more of that kind of natural licorice, you know, not that heavy, kind of inexpensive black licorice, but, you know, just a really nice licorice, kind of bittersweet chocolate notes with the black plum, currant, and dark cherry notes. Beautiful wine, really is. I'm going to go AA plus in this. If you want to spend $65 on a bottle of wine, go there. Love the spice on the back end, those baking spices. That comes from the French oak that he uses, and I think it's worth every bit of $65. I'm going to go AA plus. I want to thank the people that encouraged me to review Mark Ryan wines. I had a couple of people say, do it. I'm glad. I love the comments. What do you think about Mark Ryan wines? Do you think they're overpriced? Do you think they're balanced? I think they're, you know, he has a Lonely Hearts cab that goes for about $100. You know, then you're getting up there. But I think in this core, I mean, they're really pretty fairly priced, and they're quality wines. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. Is there another winery you would like me to review? One of my viewers said, one of you guys said, could you find a Walla Walla producer that isn't so expensive? So I think that's going to be my next episode, and I have an idea of who I'm going to go with that one. So stay tuned for that. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.